if you're going to be educated, a person has to know there's been credit and debt. And that's why I mess with Democrats, because the average person is not smart enough to handle that. All money today is credit. It doesn't exist. Credit is very simple the power to spend, and that's all it is. So when you have a credit card, there's no money in that thing. They've just given you the power to spend. And the moment you spend it, you create debt. Debt is a four-letter word for most people. There are many people in my position, so-called financial gurus, who say, live totally debt-free. And there's other people who say, cut up your credit cards. And you know, that's a good advice for certain type of people. So you should definitely cut up your credit cards if you cannot control your spending. If you can't control your spending, or if you're addicted to shopping, or you simply lack the financial education necessary to correctly manage your credit, then you definitely should cut up your credit cards, because if you're like that, then debt will become a heavy burden for you. Well, the reason the rich don't work for money is number one, expense of taxes. See, there's three kinds of income: earned, portfolio, and passive. So, earned income is if I get a job, that's earned income. If I'm a doctor or a programmer, that's earned income because I'm working for it. If I buy, let's say, Apple for $10 and set up for 20, that's portfolio income, capital gains. But passive income is just cash flow, it's never taxed. So it's not, that's all. All these guys are now screaming in America, tax the rich, and say good luck. Because most of the guys complaining, they don't know these three kinds of income, and the rich don't have jobs anyway. They have assets. And so the average smile out there, poor guy, send the kid to school, they don't learn this. So that's why in fake, as you were talking about, there's a newspaper article about Jared Kushner, and he explains how the Trumps and the Kushners don't pay taxes and make millions of dollars. And the reporter couldn't understand him because our school never teach you those three types of income. The rich don't work for money, and most people don't understand that because they've already been genetically programmed from parents and school to go to get a job and work hard for money. Now, the harder you work for money, the poorer you get. The reason for that is money was designed to steal our wealth. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing because it makes me richer, but like the yin and yang of life, everything has its opposite sides. So everything that rich dad taught me was opposite of what my poor dad taught me. My poor dad was a school teacher, good people, but they don't know anything about money. So on one side, my poor dad is always saying, work hard, go to school, get a job, save money, get out of debt. On the opposite side, on the young side, well, just don't do that. So when I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it was about the opposites. That's all it was. And the rich don't work for money. The richest people in the world don't work for money. But the average person is not part of their consciousness. They think differently compared to the common folk when it comes to matters of financial and money managing. And that's the difference between them. The biggest difference between the poor and the rich, in my opinion, is not the amount of money they have. Money doesn't matter. What really differentiates them is their mentality, their education, their financial education. Rich people know how to manage money because they were taught to do so. Poor people, on the other hand, lack this sort of education. This is necessary knowledge to succeed economically. Debt is a four-letter word for most people. There are many people in my position, so-called financial gurus, who say live free, totally debt-free. And there's other people who say cut up your credit cards, and that's a good advice for certain types of people. So you should definitely cut up your credit cards if you can't control your spending. Definitely. But I don't know how people live without credit cards. I don't know how can you check into a hotel, rent a car, or go shopping, go out for dinner, so. But you should cut up your credit cards if you are a shopaholic. That's a good advice. Credit is very necessary to make money. If you can wield debt as a tool instead of being burdened by it, then you can become rich. But that requires you to learn to manage debt. It requires you to understand how money works, how the economy works. If that becomes a burden or a tool, it entirely depends on you. And the other thing about debt, there's good debt and bad debt. And if you only have bad debt, which I classify student loan debt as bad debt, the main reason is bad debt is because it's the worst possible type of debt. You see, if you get into trouble as a businessman with debt, I can declare bankruptcy and I'm clean. But the trouble with student loan debt is that you can do that. It hangs around your neck for the rest of your life, so if you're a student, you shouldn't take a student loan debt unless you're absolutely 100% guaranteed that you will commit to graduating. If you take a student loan debt and then decide to drop out of school, not only will have you abandon all your previous hard work, but you will have taken a debt for absolutely nothing. So really, it's just common sense. Do not take debts if you're planning on making use of them. There is always three sides to a coin, heads, tails, and the edge. So which side of the coin are you on? For my side, it's fair. But this is the difference. Everybody can do the same thing I do because the Thugs laws are for everybody. We don't say, well, the Thugs law is only for the rich. No, Thugs laws are for everybody to use if you have the right financial education. And the reason I'm advocate of financial education is that without that education, you have to pay taxes. You see, very few people will buy what I do. Make $1 million and pay zero tax. That takes. And my rich dad taught me that by playing Monopoly. That's how it started. So, 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel, or the McDonald's formula. I read about it, yeah, the McDonald's rate crack. McDonald's is in the real estate business, so they sell hamburgers, but they buy real estate, they pay no taxes. Taxes are incentives. The reason I get tax breaks for real estate is because I provide housing. I get tax breaks for providing jobs. I get tax breaks for providing oil. And I get tax breaks for providing food, but most people see me as a crook. I'm not. The US government wants me to provide housing, wants me to provide jobs, wants me to borrow money because that's how money is created through debt. And provide oil and food. That's why I get tax breaks. Everybody can do the same if they have the financial education to do it. If people understood the tax code, we will be more prosperous. If people were to understand the tax code, they also will be capable of obtaining tax breaks as I do. But the problem is that they never got the chance to learn, or they never bothered to learn in the worst cases. People call me a crook because they simply don't understand the workings of the US economy. If you provide something to the nation will also provide something to you. It's a simple exchange. This is why financial education is so important in my opinion. I don't save money, I use debt to get rich. I also in fake write about infinite return, whereas if they hire your financial IQ, you don't need money. So if you need money, you're not using your brain or something, because it doesn't take money to make money. And that's one of the biggest lies they tell you. So since 1973 I use debt. I use my own money. I just borrow money to get rich. So many people want to get rich, but they have horrible teachers and then they work for fake money. The US dollar is fake. They're printed. They print trillions of them every month. And then you buy these fake assets, and I don't touch that stuff, but the average person should. So that's why demographics and person's desire to be rich is probably more important than their education. To be rich, you first have to learn how to be rich, and to be able to learn how to be rich, you need to want to learn how to be rich. That's all in the mentality. There is a lot of information about finance and the workings of the economy on the internet. You just have to take a bit of time from your day-to-day to learn. If you're going to be educated, A person has to know there's been credit and debt. And that's why I mess with demographics, because the average person isn't smart enough to handle that. All money today is credit. It doesn't exist. Credit is very simple the power to spend, and that's all it is. So when you have a credit card, there's no money in that thing. You've just given to you the power to spend, and the moment you spend it, you create debt. And a debt is the contractual agreement that you will pay back. Now, the trouble is most people aren't paying it back. Look at the student loan crisis which was brought by Obama. I'm not Republican or Democrat, but the student loans used to be with the big banks. Today they are there with the US Treasury, and the US Treasury started taking the student loan debt, giving them credit, and now the student loan debt is bigger than the supreme crisis that broke down the market in 2008. That's financial education.